Hey guys, I've been having some technical difficulties, so I really hope that it works this time. And sorry, I have this ominous board behind me. Just pretend like you don't see it. Okay. Anyways, my topic for this week was elder abuse. And sorry, give me 1 second. I'm really struggling. Okay. So my topic was elder abuse, which is kind of just one of the overall topics within like adult social work problems that we talked about this week. So first and foremost, why I chose this topic. Luckily, I don't think I have any personal experience, with anyone that I know in my family or my loved ones that have experienced elder abuse. So I think that's a blessing. But I definitely know people who have, their parents, or not their parents, their parents' parents, I guess. So their grandparents, or their great grandparents in, nursing homes and things like that. And I definitely heard some horror stories and heard how older people really struggle, and sometimes it's kind of a downer. It's kind of sad. It's kind of unfortunate. So I just thought that learning more about this topic would be very interesting, and I want to know ways that I can, help do something now to help make their lives a little bit better if I can, and just to prevent, further abuse from happening to elders and older people, and just um, try to make their lives as good as they can be in their circumstances. Okay, so the first article that I found is from the news, and it's called Alabama Creates Nation's First Elder Abuse Registry, which was kind of shocking to me. Oh no, I went the wrong way, sorry. That there hasn't been an elder abuse registry yet, because I feel like that's something that's very important and that should be in place already. But it's still good that it's in place now, which is kind of disappointing that it, is just now becoming a more prevalent issue. So first, the law creates a registry for nursing homes and other elder care agencies to check if a person has been convicted of elder abuse, which, like I said, is something that I feel like should have already been in place, but I guess it was not. But it also provides information about people who have had elder abuse protection orders that have been issued. So even if someone hasn't been convicted of elder abuse, but if they have had different protection orders issued and, there have been problems with them in the past, that people that are looking for caregivers like nursing homes or care agencies, that they can see this information, and protect older people in their circumstances and make sure that they get the best care that they can. This article in particular kind of focused on the financial exploitation part of elder abuse. The author of the article was writing about someone that their mother was in in a nursing home or something like that, or she had a caregiver, and the person that was taking care of her was stealing a whole bunch of money every time she helped with her financials. And it was just very shocking to me. I don't know why I had never thought of financial exploitation being, I guess, a type of elder abuse, but I had never also thought of it being like a large issue within society. But reading that experience was like kind of eye-opening, and it just made me really feel for these people who really have no way to help themselves. And it's just really sad and really unfortunate. But this article talked about how elder abuse is on the rise and that there were 11,000 reports in 2021, which is a big number. But this also includes physical abuse, neglect, and also financial exploitation. So kind of the things that we talked about in class, or I guess read in the textbook, which are the different types of elder abuse. So it kind of encompasses a whole bunch of different things, but still 11,000 reports is pretty high, and that's just the things that were actually reported. So lastly, this law kind of puts all the information in one place, which makes it better for the safety and security of elders, just having kind of one database, one registry that keeps all that information together, to prevent, people who are harmful from, working with older people and, preventing them from being abused in different types of ways. So my scholarly article is called Mental Health Consequences and Service Use of Older Adults at Risk of Financial Exploitation. So obviously this was more scholarly, and it also had a focus on social work, kind of. It did, but just because it talks about mental health and how that was affected by, financial exploitation. So both articles kind of focus on financial exploitation. So it talked about how older adults who experience financial exploitation, they reported worse trauma symptoms and depression than those who did not experience financial exploitation, which I mean, it just goes to show that, even if we may not think anything of it, that these things have real consequences. And, trauma and depression are very serious. And it's just crazy to me that, these resources are not really available for a lot of people. Also, this article talked about how mental health services were underused among the population of older people, even though they had these higher levels of, mental health issues and trauma and everything like that. Which I just think is, it made me wonder, like, if, people weren't necessarily helping older people, or if they just didn't have access to resources and everything like that. That it kind of raises a bigger question of, like, why are we not giving help to these people who obviously really need it? And even if there are services in place, why are they being underused and everything like that? So then lastly, this article talked about how there is an association between depressive symptoms and social support. And that's also reflected in modern literature, which also shows that, having this social support, having a social worker, going to therapy, just like having someone there is like a protective factor for mental health outcomes, and how it makes the world of a difference. I think that just goes to show how there's obviously literature that backs this up, but also this study shows the same thing. And just how there should be resources for these older people who are being abused in any variety of way. And, even if these resources in place, we should be ensuring that they have access to these resources and that they have the opportunity to use them. All right. So the code of ethics that I thought were most applicable to this topic were social justice, and then dignity and worth of a person. I think the explanation behind social justice is pretty straightforward, just because it talks about how, social workers have the responsibility to work on behalf of vulnerable and oppressed individuals. And I think that older people and elders are a great example of this. I think a lot of times we talk about like groups as a whole that are marginalized and oppressed, but I mean, just personally, I never thought of, older people being a group that could be considered vulnerable and oppressed. But I definitely think that, obviously from the textbook that we read and from the experiences that I read from these two articles, that they're definitely vulnerable and, in a position that they can't really help themselves, and they can't really get the help they need unless it's from other people. And then also dignity and worth of a person I thought was important, just because, it's important to value the lives of older people. Just because they're old doesn't mean that they deserve any less, and that we should, take their lives and their rights seriously. And I like how the Code of Ethics talked about how social workers are responsible to clients and society as a whole, and how we should, recognize that this is like a symptom of a bigger disease, and how, even if we're helping like one individual at a time, it's important to realize that this is kind of a larger issue, and that there's a lot that could be done to help these individuals. And also, it's important to recognize the individual needs and differences of clients. Just when talking to them and working with them and helping them find treatment and different options and resources, just recognizing that they have different problems and they're struggling in different ways, they can be abused in different ways, and how they have different needs because of that. All right, now to compare and contrast two articles. The first article focused, just on specific laws that were about elder abuse. I mean, I guess it just talked about one law, but I mean, we just talked about what the name of the law is, why it was named that, and the different facets of the law, instead of kind of, going into any particulars about elder abuse. But it did, give individual stories. It gave a story of why the law was named, why it was named that. And it also, the first article had like less concern about the relationship with social work, and just, it was kind of just like stating some facts rather than like digging deeper and focusing on the larger problem at stake. And then the scholarly article talked about the mental health effects of elder abuse, and how there is a direct correlation between, the different types of elder abuse and, the levels of trauma and the levels of depression. But also talked about how social work relates to elder abuse, and how social workers can get these resources to older people. And that kind of ties into the last point down there, is that that there are ways to help older people, and that we should, be aware of those and be working to make sure that these older people have access to those resources. And then I guess comparing the two articles, they both focused on the financial exploitation part of elder abuse, and how this is like one of the largest types of elder abuse that a lot of people may not be aware of. I mean, I know I really wasn't aware of it before I did this presentation. But they also both talked about the importance of helping those in need, and in particular for this topic, just older people and elders who, can't really help themselves or don't really have the access to resources or anything like that in terms of the things that they need. All right, so my question is, in what ways does social work with elders differ from social work with other groups? I just thought this was interesting because we've talked about a wide variety of groups and how social workers can help them, and I just was interested to hear what your guys' perspective is on how that differs from social work with elders. And here are my sources. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you have a great day and a great weekend.